Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our public meeting of planning for Monday, December 9th. Are there any disclosure of conflict of interest? I have a disclosure. So I, Jamie McDonald, declare a pecuniary interest with item number 4 in the public meeting, as the buyer of this property is my client. Motion to accept the agenda. Who has the agenda? Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Madden, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the public meeting planning agenda of Monday, December 9th, 2024.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Ratify the minutes. Councillor Madden.
Excuse me, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the minutes of the public meeting of planning Monday, October 28th, 2024.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Motion is carried, and I will pass the pass it over to the Deputy Mayor.
Okay, are there any motions I'm going to need, or no? Oh, it's just a public meeting, okay. All right, so take it away, Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So we have one file for this meeting, zoning bylaw amendment number Z09-2024. On my first slide here, it just mentions that for zoning bylaws, it will be voted at the next meeting. For those of you who saw that we had placed that zoning bylaw to be passed at the meeting today, we will be removing it because there are some, I'll explain why, but there are some discrepancies between the plan and what's supposed to actually be on the plan as for setbacks. So it will be voted at the next council meeting, basically, is what I'm saying. So yeah, zoning bylaw 09. The owner for this file, La Gantoise Inc., the location, 2522 Loch Hill Road, so also known as County Road 21. That's the location of the property. So as you can see, it's just on County Road 21, north of Alexandria here, close to the 34. More precisely this. So this is the typical prohibit agricultural and prohibit residential as part of a severance condition. So as you can see, all the pink area will remain agricultural with the owner, and the little portion on the north side will be the residential new created portion. So that's a little zoom in. So normally so what we're rezoning are both portions. As you know, we normally like to have the survey when we do these meetings. And the reason is because when I went on site to post, I noticed that the shed was higher than 5 meters. So technically it has to be 6 meters away from all property lines. I mentioned that to the surveyors. I received a survey this morning, but it was not at 6 meters. So there are some options to the owner, like it's not like we have to start over, but unfortunately we will not be able to pass it right away because of that. So if we pass it today, because it's not 6 meters, the owner will have to pass a minor variance afterwards. So he doesn't want to go through that. So we'll revise our bylaw for the next meeting. So that's what it is. It's not really a problem. It's just a question of respecting the zoning bylaw setback for that residential portion there. So that being said, what you see on the screen here is the residential portion. So the barn the owner will apply for a change of use permit. It will become a residential accessory storage building. There's also another garage which is already residential, and this is the property. So official plan designation. So the reason why we have to do that, even though, as you can see there, the official plan has both agricultural resource lands and rural district as designation, simply because where we're severing off the property, it is in in agricultural lands. This is our zoning here. As you can see, our zoning is all general agricultural. So the purpose for this application, just basically to comply with consent application B74-24, condition number 3 and 4. So rezone the larger portion, which is 106 acres, from general agricultural to general agricultural special exception 253 to prohibit residential, and to simply acknowledge the reduction in frontage. So agricultural lots, they need 200 meters of frontage. Here we only have 167 meter. And to rezone the residential portion to prohibit agricultural. And this is not a flag lot, so it does have the required 45 meter minimum for lot frontage on this one. So that's the survey we got this morning. So it's the only, so what will end up happening is that we may change the lines altogether, like the south property line, we may move it up because we're gonna redo we're gonna do the bylaw correctly, we may move the lines, but this is what it will be. So right now, the issue is with the right side setback from the barn. It's not 6 meters, so that's why it can't be passed. So as I mentioned, it's 108 acres, 106 are being kept for agricultural purposes. Most of the property lines will be, they will all be made compliant with the zoning bylaw, or will include them as part of the zoning. The owner will apply for a change of use. I'll go on site to make sure that there's no other health and safety hazard for the public on the properties. This is what the property looks like now. So there's one driveway for the residential, on the residential portion, that will remain for residential. It's on a county road, so the owner will have to apply at the counties for a new entrance, or the owner could also decide to access the fields from neighboring fields. But I think here the goal for the owner is to apply for a new entrance. This will all be done at the county level. We will be able to issue a new civic number for the new entrance because the existing civic number will remain with this house there. So it's a long driveway, but it's not a flag lot. So the portion that you see on the left side, the grassed area, will all be with the residential land. So it's gonna be a nice 2.29 acre property. So yeah, this one's pretty, it's a nice residential property with lots of frontage. Yeah, so that's for the entrance, the driveways. So that's looking west. So as you can see, there's a new house that's being constructed there. Between that new house and the driveway is the agricultural portion. So this is where the new driveway will be. So as you can see, it's being cropped right now. It's all fields. And looking east, that's the neighboring house. So all the property, the land that you see there will remain residential with the dwelling. So this is just the same as every time we do these surplus dwellings. So the Planning Act gives council permission to pass these bylaws. The PPS encourages that so long as the residential portion is being kept to a minimum. And here what I like is the fact that they made it more square, a little bit more land to incorporate, I guess, the grassed area with the residential. It does make a nice rural residential properties as compared to some that we see sometimes. Yeah, and SDG same time encourages if we keep it to a minimum. So in conclusion, based on the criteria above, the proposed zoning amendment conforms to the relevant policies of the SDG official plan, consistent with the PPS, and will be made compliant with our zoning bylaw. And, oh, yeah, sorry, that's it. Thank you, Ms. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob, for your report. Questions or comments? No? Yes, I think you'll ask three. I have a question though first. When I read it in one package and then being passed in the other package, I had that I was going to ask the question was, like, there's obviously timelines for a sale or something like that?
Yes, the owner contacted us, so I guess there's been a little misunderstanding. The owner, it's very time sensitive. He wants to sell the residential portion. But like the survey wasn't, so the surveyor couldn't go on site before a certain point. So I was trying to explain to him, like, we need the survey first to do this because exactly what happened can happen. So anyway, I did talk to him and he's all okay. But yeah, that was the whole purpose of passing it at the next meeting, just for time sensitivity, I guess, if I can say.
Right. Okay, thank you. Anything else? No? Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Does anyone wish to speak in favor or against the application this evening? Second time, does anyone wish to speak in favor or against the application this evening? And a third and final time.
Thank you. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams. There being no further business to discuss, the public meeting of planning was adjourned at 5:56.
All those in favor? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, we'll take a short 4-minute break and then we'll get back to, for the regular meeting. And welcome to our regular meeting of council for Monday, December 9th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone could please stand for the national anthem. Okay, thank you, everyone, and welcome to members of council, staff, and the public. Are there any declaration of conflict of interest? Seeing none, motion to accept. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, one of our delegations, Habitat for Humanity, she's not able to attend this evening. And as the Director of Planning, Building, Bylaw had mentioned, the BP 2024-30 report will not be presented this evening.
Okay. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the agenda of the regular meeting of council on Monday, December the 9th, 2024, as amended.
Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried, none opposed. Moving on to the adoption of the previous minutes. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the minutes of the following meeting be adopted as circulated. Regular meeting of council minutes, Monday, November 25th, 2024.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, moving on to delegations. I'd like to welcome the Vice President Marco Vincelli of EVB Engineering.
Thank you very much. Your worship, council members and administration, thank you very much for your time tonight to present to you our report on the infiltration into your sanitary wastewater collection system.
Sorry, I don't have control on it yet. Perfect.
Is it possible to bring the presentation up?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Thank you. So what is infiltration and inflow? So your wastewater collection system is designed to collect sewage for transportation to your lagoon system for treatment. Inflow and infiltration is when surface water or groundwater finds a way to get into that collection system, occupying the space and the capacity that wastewater should be taking in that collection system. How do you quantify that? So the township does have a program where they use a closed circuit television inspection program where they take a tractor mounted camera and send it through all of the collection system. When they're doing this, you're observing where there are, deflections in the pipe, cracks, root infiltration. So all of these are signs of how stormwater and groundwater can get into your collection system. EVB has just completed a sewer model for your collection system. So what that does is it recreates a 3D model of your sanitary collection system, and then we can run it through different storm scenarios to see how the system reacts under different storm conditions. So there's typical storm conditions for 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 100-year. So each one of those storms has a different level of precipitation and a different intensity and duration. So this is a copy of the 3D model. Each of the different colored areas are different catchment areas. So in the green catchment area, you'll see that there's yellow arrows. So all of the wastewater that's collected within the homes in that area follow that path to the main pumping station, which then transfers everything to the lagoon system. So in the collection system, we installed flow monitors. So they were tracking the flows, the levels, velocity of your wastewater in your conveying system. We were also monitoring the levels of precipitation that were falling. So this is an example of the trending of our model compared to what the flow monitor was measuring in one of your sanitary pipes. So the blue lines are the actual measurements from the flow sensor, and the orange line is what was represented in the model itself. So once we've calibrated the model, now there's a way of evaluating it to see how the system reacts to the different flow scenarios. So there's two different conditions. One is pipe capacity. So we look at the level of flow of the pipe, the velocity, the slope of the pipe, and it comes up with a capacity. So we measure the flows, compare it to the design capacity, and then it tells us whether or not you can convey those flows. What's very useful is in the future, when you're looking at future growth, you can then estimate how much more contribution there'll be from that future growth and level that on top of your existing flow to give you an idea of where the constraints and bottlenecks are in your conveying system. The other condition we look at is flood conditions, which identifies whether or not there's surcharging in your manholes or your maintenance holes. If the elevation goes above the rim, it could get into a situation where you're looking at basement flooding in certain areas. So these are the two conditions that we're looking at in our model. When we look at an evaluation of your pumping stations, most of them are good under the 2 and the 5 year conditions, but then their capacity is stretched as we look at the 10 and the 100 year flow conditions. There are some overflow pipes at your sanitary pumping stations, which alleviates any surcharging. So it's not a good practice, but it is a practice to protect the collection system and to prevent basement flooding. I know that there's been a program where we're looking at doing some upgrades to the pumping stations to help alleviate some of these bottlenecks. When we look at the pipes in the ground, very good news, like under the 2-year storm event, only 1% of your sanitary sewers are surcharged at 100%, and then at 100 years, 7% of the sewers. So that's very good news, because it means there's only a couple areas that are of concern at this moment in time. And again, that's under a 1 in 100 year storm event. So this is a drawing of your collection system. There is one yellow section up on, I think that's Bishop Street, that is yellow, and that represents some capacity concerns of the sanitary sewer at that location. But under dry weather conditions, your capacity and all of your collection system is working to where it needs to be for the existing residents of the village. When we get to a 2-year storm, you'll see there's a couple more areas that start popping up as yellow. There's a couple pink and there's a couple red areas. So these are areas that the township needs to look at to see, is there infiltration contributing to those flows? How can we carve it back and come up with a plan to address? At 5 years, there's a little bit more. At 10 years, it starts to grow. And then at 100 years, it grows a little bit more. And this is just a natural progression. We're just looking at worst case scenarios as we go and identifying future projects that'll help eliminate these bottlenecks. So how do you reduce I&I? We need to get rid of the storm and groundwater infiltration into the collection system. So, where am I pointing? So there's ways of doing it, and you can smoke test. So if there are rain leaders connected to east troughs that are connected to your sanitary system, you put a certified smoke bomb in your sewer, you cover your manhole, and then you look for where the smoke's coming out. So that'll identify, and it is done, it'll identify where there are connections to your sanitary system that provide a stormwater inlet.
But where there's smoke, there's fire.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. You know, continuing the
You were waiting for
CCTV.
that, eh? Like for him to stop talking? I could see you were very proud of yourself 5 seconds before you said it.
Continuing with the CCTV program that the township has started, will help identify areas of concern. We had flow monitors in certain areas. We can continue that kind of program and use it to further develop the model. And then house surveys. There's a possibility of going door to door, asking if sump pumps are connected to the sanitary or a ditch, and trying to get those separated. So short-term I&I reduction efforts would see all sump pumps, stormwater laterals, roof, spouts, and parking lot drains removed from the sanitary system. They should all go to the stormwater system if it exists. The township has a cast-in-place lining program for some of the sewers, as well as the water mains, which really is another project. And then the grouting and sealing of manholes or maintenance holes. So if there is leakage around some of the concrete structures, you can go in with grout, seal that up, and restore some of the capacity in the system. Long-term planning, we'll be looking at some sewer replacements for failed sewers, individual manhole or maintenance hole replacement, upsizing of sewer pipes, and the pumping station upgrades previously discussed. So we worked with Jacob and Tim to look at all of the vacant properties within the village and identify what areas could be developed in the short term and then what areas could be developed in the long term to see how that additional sewage loading would impact on the models that we had prepared. So if we look at just the development of the green areas from that previous drawing, and this is dry weather baseline, so no precipitation occurring, you'll see that one small section of yellow sewer that was on Bishop Street has now grown. So there is more bottlenecking in the system that needs to be addressed. And then if we look at the long-term development, which was all of the orange as well, under dry weather conditions, there are areas of the system that are over capacity and would need some attention in order to prevent basement flooding. So we looked at different alternatives to conveying the new development growth, the wastewater from that growth to the east end of town. So we came up with two options really. With the proposed Lattiser subdivision on the west end of town, the sewers on LaRue and Industrial are going to be under capacity for the ultimate build-out of that subdivision. So that pink sewer that's been highlighted there is going to need to be upsized. So after that, we're now looking at how do you get that flow from the west end of town to the east end of town. So you have two options, and the option is the green line, which is a new trunk sewer that runs right through the village, through the developed area. So you need to address, the connections with the existing homes, other utilities that are in the ground. Or the alternate would be to try to secure an easement for a force main along the CN tracks on the north end of town. So what that option presents to you is the ability to take any flows from the west end and prevent them from going through your downtown core area where the congestion's occurring. And then you'll have other abilities to service other properties on the north side that could connect into that force main in the future. Now, Bishop Street also we've identified, so there is an orange line that's there to service the Bishop Street pumping station and its collection or catchment area. So it will need to be updated based on some of the future growth that is projected in that area. So there's an alternate there where instead of paying for that orange upgrades, we can always have that tied into the new force main if that's an option that the township's considering. So the cost implications. If we were to look at just the sewers on LaRue and Industrial, that cost is going to be present for either option, 1 or option 2. We have the trunk sewer upgrades that would be right through the main part of the village. We have the Bishop Street upgrades and force main, the gravity sewers downstream of the force main outfall, and then the yellow force main, which bypasses the village altogether, all listed. So the township will be looking at anywhere from $5.5 to $8.3 million in infrastructure in order to service those areas to their full build-out capacity that they've identified in the future. In addition to wastewater, we also took a look at the water capacity. So there are limitations at the Alexandria Water Treatment Plant for servicing future growth. Right now, the permit to take water is the restricting component. So the plant can treat 8,000 cubic meters per day, but currently has a permit to take water of 5,600. So the township may have to do a water balance or hire a consultant to do a water balance of Mill Pond in order to demonstrate that it can supply additional capacity. So right now, at the 5,600 cubic meters per day, the township has identified a committed component of servicing 181 homes, residential homes, and 8.23 hectares of ICI property. So those are all properties that currently have frontage to water mains, so they're not developed or they're vacant at this time. Looking at the available capacity in the water plant, the township has the ability to service an additional 734 residential homes. So it's not an immediate requirement to get the water needs study done, but depending on what the growth rates are in the township, it's something that needs to be planned in the near future, especially with the Lattiser subdivision ultimate build-out that's been proposed and other developments that also are proposed within the village. So that covers off the water and wastewater servicing for the village. Are there any questions?
Oh, sorry, I'm looking over. You have a question? Go ahead. No. Councillor Madden.
Marco, just the last part about the water treatment plant, to clarify, so we've got a rated capacity of 8,000. So taking aside the permit to take water, that 8,000 would give us about what in terms of ability to provide water? Like with what's looked at, sort of, is it just the permit to take water, or is there an actual issue in the plant?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I didn't calculate that number, but I believe the average daily flow at the plant currently is around 4,500 cubic meters per day. So let's say there's 1,000 cubic meters of uncommitted capacity right now, which provides 734 additional lots.
Okay.
So you've got
that by 3, so another
that's right.
2,100 sort of thing.
That's correct.
Okay, so we should be good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Massey.
Thank you. Marco, you took which amount of, what volume of per residential lot of water per day or something? Like, are you basing yourself on recent usage of water, or were doing something with this in the 60s that there was 8 people in the same house? You know what I'm getting at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks policy for the calculation of uncommitted reserve capacity. And what it requires us to do is base that uncommitted reserve capacity on the last 5 years of flow at the plant. So we look to see what the
Okay.
max day flow
Okay.
is. We then divide that by the number of residential units you have to determine what your water use is per home. Now, for new development, because it would be going in with new construction, your water mains should be tighter, your hydrants won't be leaking. We base it on Ministry of the Environment guidelines.
Okay.
And I believe we use 350 liters per capita per day and 2.7 people per home.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a bunch of questions, but I don't think I'll ask them all. Just looking at the growth, projected growth with regards to water, you know, we're going to have to take into account the need, the desire for growth in Maxville as well. And this model, I don't think does that, does it, at this point in time?
Again, what it does is it identifies uncommitted capacity. So whether you want to commit that in Maxville or commit that in Alexandria, that is a decision to be
Okay,
made around this
right, so
table.
it's a discussion we're going to have, I guess, at some point in time anyway. But I'm just going back to that slide that shows the yellow line, the force main, which would be brand new. I for some reason, I recall hearing that you can't have pipes coming off of a force main.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is for sanitary
Yeah,
and not for water, so it's slightly different.
okay,
When it comes to a water transmission main, the main is designed for a pressure range, and that's not necessarily the same pressure range that you want to supply a private home at. This is the conveyance of sanitary sewage.
okay.
So you design your force main to convey as much sewage as you can within the design guidelines of the ministry.
Okay.
So you can tap that in as many times as you want.
Oh, okay. That's good to hear, because I just had visions of this force main that goes all the way from the west to the east end of the town, really only being able to service the very far western portion, but that's not the case. Other sewage will be able to feed into that then?
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
Through
that's
you,
good.
Mr. Mayor, if I go back to that one slide that shows all the orange properties on the north end of town, if you were to proceed with the installation and construction of that transmission main for sewage, I would definitely consider the development of all those properties connecting into it.
And because the railway line is there, is that can we get north of there?
The railway line is there, and it has its own easements. There are development restrictions along railway lines, so I haven't looked at the mapping yet, but if I could recommend the township look at securing an easement along the CN rail line within that 30-meter setback. I think it's typical for CN tracks. They might not have a 30-meter right-of-way, so no one can develop in that corridor. So if you can look at securing an easement within that corridor, that would be a benefit to the
Right.
township.
Yeah, okay. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, so with regards to the sewer infrastructure in the ground in Alexandria and the new development, LaRue, is that the former IHA?
Ladisher. is the
Ladisher?
former IHA.
Yes.
Former IHA, okay, I'm not keeping up with the name changes here. Does option 2 have to happen before that development can function?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have evaluated phase 1 of the Ladisher subdivision, and you currently have the capacity in your collection systems to service phase 1.
To service phase 1?
That's right.
Beyond that, this
Beyond that-
needs to happen.
Correct.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further question? Go ahead, Councilor Massey.
Just one more, Mr. Mayor. So if we do go ahead with the force main on the side of the via, like the track there, yeah, the force main, and then we can reconfigure the problems we have, let's say, in mid-town or whatever, we could reconfigure stuff to send it over there instead of getting it boggled up in the Gulf Road there, like where we have problems, we can ease some of the flow from the 43 north and send it all there. Is that possible? Or?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. By bypassing all of the flow from industrial at the LaRue pumping station, and then if you can send the Bishop Street force main also north, you would be alleviating a lot of the pressure in the existing collection system.
Go ahead, Councilor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark, and that's, I just wanted to ask that. So we've got the pink section, which has to happen. That's got to happen to support phase 1 of the Latticer.
The ultimate.
The ultimate.
That does not have to occur immediately.
Okay, that supports build out as well. Okay, fair enough. So if we, I mean, obviously, we're not going to ignore dollars when it comes down to this, but when we look at option 2 versus option 1A and 1B, is it safe to say that option 2 is preferable in terms of overall benefit and amelioration of the overall system?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, in our evaluation, I believe that would give the township the best solution.
Okay, perfect.
It is
And
more
it's $1
cost-effective as well.
Exactly.
And we don't have to redo Bishop.
Well, and we don't have to do, we're not getting into, 43 Kenyon West,
And Bishop,
literally going through the middle of
we
town.
just paved Bishop a few years ago. We don't want to redo that again. It's
Okay.
true.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none? Thank you, Marco.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Safe drive home, everyone.
Yep.
There's a party at maybe after.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
stay
as soon as he walks out the door, I have stuff to say.
You said you could stay overnight at the road there too bad.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, moving on to the Community Services Department, Councilor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Madden, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report CS 2024-35, 2025 community grants, and that Council approves the following grants conditional to the approval of the community grant program funding in the 2025 municipal budget. 2025, Alexandrian District Lions Club, amount approved, $3,500. Cadell Productions, amount approved, $2,500. Friends of the Glengarry Trails, amount approved, $650. Kenyon Agricultural Society, amount approved, $3,500. Maxwell and District Chamber of Commerce, amount approved, $1,604. Maxwell and District Horticultural Society, amount approved, $2,934 and $335 in kind, for a total of $3,269. Maxwell and District Lions Club, $2,058.86. Priest Mill Center, $1,500. And the Sunshiners Social Club, $750 and $1,412 in kind, for a total of $2,162. Total grants approved, $18,996.86. In-kind approval, $1,747, for a grand total of $20,743.86.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this year, the Township of North Glengarry received a total of 11 applications for our community grants program from 11 organizations. requesting a total of $31,225.22 in funding, plus an additional $1,747 in in-kind requests. So last week, the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee did meet and conducted a review of each request for funding in great detail. And from that review determined that 9 of the applications met the requirements set out in the selection criteria. So as such, the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee is recommending that the grants be allocated as outlined for approval, conditional on the approval of the community grant funding through the 2025 budget exercise.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? You can't comment on your own thing. Deputy Mayor Williams.
I'm just asking the question. I'm not sure that in the past we've put the in-kind in the total as though it was yeah. I'm not sure.
I think we did, it was just to show the amount that we're actually giving.
Yeah.
As opposed to the actual cash amount that'll show up in the budget.
Oh, okay, so we're still looking at.
We're still looking at the 18,996.
We're still looking at the 18,996?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, moving on to the Treasury Department, Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report DR 2024-06, meeting to consider a minor improvement to the Real Diot branch of the R.A. McLennan Drain, and that bylaw 56/2024 be read a first, second, and third time and adopted in open council this 9th day of December 2024.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monica is delayed due to the weather. Would it be possible to move to my second report and come back to this one?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'll ask Jeff to read the next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report DR 2024-07, Court of Revision appointment, County Road branch of the Cumming Drain, and that bylaw 55/2024 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted in open council this 9th day of December 2024.
Thank you, Councillor. Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 2023, a Section 78 project was initiated for the County Road branch of the Cumming Drain. The purpose was to update the report to reflect the alterations required due to road widening and improvements made on County Road 22. As land in North Glengarry is affected, North Glengarry must appoint a member to the Court of Revision to hear appeals. All costs for this project will be borne by the United Counties of SD&G, and landowners will not be responsible for any portion of this work. The Deputy Mayor and Mayor were approached by North Star to be appointed, and staff are recommending that they be appointed through the attached bylaw. Thank you.
Do you remember that?
No.
I think Frank asked us. Yeah. Anyways, that's fine. Okay. Any discussion? Anybody else want to jump in and take that? All right. I don't know.
There's several meetings.
Yes, several meetings. Okay, if there's no questions, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed.
Well, he has to go. He's first.
Oh, okay.
Okay, your delegation.
Welcome, Monica. Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monica Shade from Shade Group will be presenting the engineer's report for the proposed new farm crossing on the Real Diot branch of the R.A. McLennan Drain. It was initiated by the landowner, and the cost will be borne by that landowner.
Okay. Is that you? Is that on yours? No. Okay.
Thank you. And I apologize for my tardiness. The roads are a little messy.
You're right on time.
Is there more to my slides? Because that's not my info. That's not my opening slide. And I had like 2 before that.
What did happen? Cancel.
Did they disappear? It's okay. I can just talk. That's okay. I'll just talk. So good evening. My name is Monica Shade, and I am a drainage engineer with Shade Group, Inc. I was appointed by the municipality of North Glengarry to prepare an engineer's report under Section 78(5) of the Drainage Act. The appointment and initiation of this process comes in response to a petition filed by a landowner requesting a culvert be put in on a municipal drain known as the Real Diot branch of the R.A. McClellan drain. My presentation will include an introduction on the purpose of this meeting to consider, a brief history of the existing adopted drainage system, the reason that this process was initiated, a summary of my engineer's report, and an overview of what the next steps will be in the process of adopting this report. In fitting with the process outlined in Ontario Regulation 500-21, which outlines the process under which a minor improvement project under the Drainage Act is to proceed, this meeting serves to address the requirements of Section 8, subsection 5. The purpose is to present the report and accept it as is or request changes. If accepted, council would then prepare a provisional bylaw for the proposed works. It's okay, they've just gone out of order. Okay, we might have to we'll just flip to, is there the map at least? Do you have the map page? Because they seem to have gone completely out of order. Yes. That one. We'll stick there. So the governing report for the R.A. McClellan drain, which includes the Real Diot branch, is from 1979 and was authored by Stidwell and Associates Limited. The 1979 engineer's report describes the Real Diot branch as being approximately 8,800 feet in length and serves a drainage area of approximately 277 acres. So as mentioned previously, the process was initiated as a petitioning landowner wished to add a new farm crossing to the Real Diot branch within part of Lot 5, Concession 3. Lot 5, Concession 3 appears to have undergone a severance since the previous adopted engineer's report was authored, and as there was already a culvert located within part of Lot 5, Concession 3, which was shown in the engineer's report from 1978, the minor improvement process needed to be undertaken to add another culvert to the drain. So to facilitate an explanation of the works proposed, this slide provides a visual representation of the works and their location. The area outlined in red is the property owned by the initiating landowner, and the subject property extends off the page to the south as well. The area near the center of the slide is hatched and labeled as the area requiring access. The hatched area represents an area of approximately 4 acres. The East Rigaud River bisects the subject property and prevents access to the internal lands as there's no way to cross from the south over the East Rigaud River. At the north, access to the hatched area is impeded by the Real Diot branch. Currently, access to the land is via the adjacent landowner's laneway along the western limits of the subject property, traveling over the crossing on the Real Diot branch that serves the adjacent farmhouse, and traveling through the neighbor's field. We understand that the adjacent landowner is planning to make changes to the field currently used for access by the initiating landowner, and access with farming equipment will no longer be possible. As such, the initiating landowner had requested a culvert be placed near the east side of the property to allow them access to the central portion of their property, which remains actively farmed. The approximate proposed location of the farm crossing is labeled on the plan near the center of the map as the approximate crossing location. An engineer's report was prepared for the proposed new farm crossing in accordance with the guidelines of the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness, and included the various highlights. This report includes a brief summary of the history of the drain, how the project meets the conditions under the Ontario Regulation 500/21, hydrologic and hydraulic calculations to support the proposed crossing size, consideration for erosion and capacity impacts to the drainage system, how future maintenance is to be addressed, permitting considerations, and a summary of the associated project costs. All costs associated with the process, including construction, permitting, and such engineering fees, are to be paid by the initiating landowner. So 3 design options have been presented in the report to allow the initiating landowner some flexibility in choosing a crossing that suits their needs in the most cost-effective manner. As the market continues to fluctuate for pipe pricing, both plastic HDPE pipe options as well as a corrugated steel option has been presented, and 2 different end treatment options, either head walls or projecting ends. The final choice on the preferred installation option will be at the discretion of the initiating landowner. All 3 options have been confirmed to meet industry standards, and in all 3 cases, the proposed diameter of the pipe is to be 750 millimeters. The project was circulated to both Raisin Region Conservation Authority and Fisheries and Oceans Canada for review and comment. Fisheries and Oceans Canada, often referred to as DFO, reviews projects for aquatic impacts and impacts the project may have on aquatic species and their habitat. To regulate such measures, they do so under the Fisheries Act. A letter of advice was received from DFO indicating that the project is not intended or anticipated to cause harm to fish or fish habitat, and so fisheries authorization was not required. The letter received is included in the engineer's report and indicates certain restrictions for how and when the work can be performed. RRCA regulates watercourses under the Conservation Authorities Act and requires permits for works impacting watercourses. They conducted a review of the proposed works as it relates to flooding and erosion and issued a permit for the initial installation. A copy of that permit has also been enclosed within the engineer's report. Shade Group maintained an open line of communication throughout the project with both the initiating landowner and the township's representatives. So following the completion of this presentation, Council would allow the initiating property owner an opportunity to provide input and ask questions if applicable. Council may then decide to either send the report back for revisions or adopt the report as submitted. Following decision to proceed, the report may be provisionally adopted by bylaw and there would be an opportunity for appeals. Following the appeals period, the project may proceed to construction. And so that concludes my presentation on the proposed minor improvement.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Seems pretty straightforward. Okay. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. None opposed. Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we are notice of motion. Next regular meeting of council is Tuesday, January 7th, which is our budget day. And confirmation bylaw, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry adopts bylaw 57, 2024, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, and that bylaw 57, 2024 be read a first, second, third time and enacted in open council this 9th day of December 2024.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And motion to adjourn, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Manley, that there being no further business to discuss. The meeting was adjourned at 6:45 p.m.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. It's our last meeting before Christmas, so I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you at budget time. We'll all be in great humor. Thank you. Have a great night.